Hello, this is Zirk. I used to play on Bismarck, but quit Final Fantasy back in February 2011. I'd consider myself a Ballista expert in public team play. I didn't participate in the Ballista Royale because I actually was on break from Final Fantasy during that time, and don't have much serious 1v1 experience because it doesn't come up that often. But there's still general PvP principles that apply, so I'll do my best to commentate the matches and I'll try to analyze and be as critical as possible of things like gear choices or different plays people are making. Uh, Probably less rage this time than some of my other videos if you watch those. That was from a tournament that was on my server, and I thought it was a super serious tournament. There was like a 500,000 gil entry fee, and there was going to be the winner was eventually going to get all of the gil that was pooled in there. And I felt that basically based on my job selection, basically my main job was a monk that I played in Ballista, and basically I felt that Monk had absolutely no chance of winning in a 1v1 tournament, and I still think they don't, because what the fuck is a Monk going to do to you? They're basically like a slightly more intelligent AI mob. All they're going to do is auto attack you to the end of time, so that's pretty easy to counter that. So anyways, I didn't enter the tournament, and then it turned out the tournament was a big joke instead of being really serious because everybody in there sucked. So I was raging, and then yeah. So moving on. I never really liked the idea of a one versus one tournament because it's Final Fantasy XI is just not intended to be balanced in a one versus one PvP setting. There's jobs like that I feel like Black Mage, Red Mage, Scholar, Paladin, Blue Mage, Dark Knight just have such an incredible edge over other jobs that it's virtually impossible to win as long as the person is playing properly. Personally, I think if I had to pick one job that would end up winning the tournament, it would be a skilled Red Mage because Red Mage as seen in regular play, is just by far the most dominant solo job, and for good reason. They've got incredible sustain. They can cure themselves. They can, they can also get their mana back with convert and refresh, and they can be incredibly defensive with buffs like Stone Skin and Phalanx. They've got good damage output. They've got incredible access to enfeebles. So Red Mage is just obviously one of the strongest jobs in Final Fantasy XI, and I think if played to maximum effect, I think it would dominate in a one versus one tournament. And yeah, just being able to enfeeble your opponent in one versus one is just pretty much the core of every match. Really, if you're a job like Monk and you can't land enfeebles, like you're just gonna get screwed. Like you can't do anything. But, like if you're entering into one versus one tournament and you seriously want to win, you're gonna need to come up with an answer to being petrified and being slept. And if your main job doesn't naturally resist one of those traits, then your sub job it can only cover one of them. Like you could sub Scholar to be unsleepable, or you could sub Red Mage to try to get some resist Petrify. But jobs like Black Mage, Red Mage, and Dark Knight, and I'm a bit behind the times. I don't know if Scholar can cast Petrify yet, but those jobs all have access to both of those enfeebles, so you need to be able to answer both of those. And there is some gear like Flawless Ribbon, which could it forced to provide resist traits, but I'm not sure how reliable that would be in an actual one versus one setting. I've never really seen people use gear like that, so maybe someone will bust that out in this tournament and it'll work out well for them. I don't know. We'll have to see and find out. But yeah, and even if you don't count the ability to enfeeble your opponent well, there is still like so many other factors like sustain. Like Paladin is just incredibly defensive. They can cure themselves, and like they can outlast many people. Like jobs like Monk or Warrior just are totally outclassed by a job like Paladin, who can not only deal damage but still absorb lots of damage and cure themselves back to full and stay in the fight for a long time. Blue Mage also, incredibly high damage output, also very defensive, also can cure themselves. Stuff like that is really what's going to win you a one versus one match. So, yeah. Another thing with one versus one tournaments is it's practically impossible to make the rules fair. Like, at some point you've got to decide, okay, are you going to allow the players to buff before the match starts? This is obviously going to benefit jobs that can cast enhancing magic, like Black Mage, Red Mage, jobs like that. And even if you make the argument that, if you're a monk, you could just sub White Mage or Red Mage and you could Stone Skin yourself as well. But first off, your Stone Skin isn't going to be as good. And secondly, the MP cost of pre-buffing is a much larger percentage of like a monk's or warrior's maximum mana than it would be for a red mage or black mage, where it's virtually negligible. So even at the beginning of the match, sure they're both pre-buffed, but the job that's just subbing a job to be able to access buffs like that is still going to be way short on mana at the beginning of the fight and be at a disadvantage. Other things like what items are you going to allow? Like if you allow poison pots, that just totally eliminates the sleep game, which some jobs like Black Mage might rely very heavily on. Are you going to allow echo drops and things like that? Because that's obviously going to help the mages out again. So it's tough to decide there. Are you going to allow food? Because say you're a Black Mage fighting a monk, the Black Mage can eat a Tabnation Taco and have great defense against the monk's damage, but there's not much that the monk can eat that will negate the Black Mage's magic damage. So it's no matter how you slice it, it's always going to be the rules are always going to slightly favor some jobs over others. So it's never 100% fair. So, but that being said, there's still a lot of people who are inexperienced with PvP and Ballista, and there's still lots of room for skill and experience to overcome a job disadvantage. So we'll see what happens in this tournament. And if you're watching these videos and you find that 1v1 PvP looks pretty interesting, then I would strongly urge you to actually try a Team Ballista match, because the strategy and tactics are just so much greater in a team match. And not only that, but in team matches, in my opinion, pretty much every single job can be played effectively in a team match. Like there's always some role that you can fail for a team, especially if you're experienced. So yeah, get out and try some public PvP Ballista, because that was my favorite thing to do in Final Fantasy of all time, and that's why I'm back to commentate here, because it's just so great. So anyways, let's get on to the matches.